Alright, we're going to jump into the daily rapid arena. I'm not going to play the whole thing. I'm going to play until I lose 2 games. So get some rapid training games in. 10-0 time control. So if I don't lose 2 games, I'll play the whole thing, but that seems unlikely. Alright, here we go. Starting with b4. Let's just try and play this normal. I think I'm supposed to take this pawn and let them take on e5. And then don't let them take on g7. I'm going to castle quickly here. Don't know the theory, so we're just kind of winging it. Push that bishop back. And he's going to have pressure along that diagonal for much of the game. Let's pin this knight. I've got to decide which way I want to develop this knight and how to deal with this bishop. I could try and take space with an a-pawn push at some point. I think I'm going to start with knight to d7, and I might jump it into e5. There it would attack his knight and his bishop. And it has the bonus of, to stop that, he might have to trade his strong bishop. So let's go ahead and jump there. On the knight and bishop, okay, his bishop goes back. So I can capture once or twice if I want. Probably not twice. Don't want his queen ending up there. Capture once is a possibility. I could play rook e8 just to guard my knight in case there's 2 exchanges on e5. I could capture once and then play knight c4. So capture, capture, knight c4 on the bishop. See what he does about that. Okay, so I attack that bishop. The bishop probably is not going to go to c3. Could go back to c1. That doesn't seem bad for me. It could go up to d4. Yeah, and it's hard for me to dislodge it from d4 because after it's there, if I play c5, giving myself a backwards d-pawn. I could also just take once and play c6, which might also be good. Do I really want to give up my bishop, though? The threat right now is that he takes my knight. Alright, so let's take with the bishop. And now, I don't think I want to take his bishop. If I take with the bishop, the queen comes up. I could still play c6 there. But he's got 2 attackers on f6 then, so that's not ideal. Let's keep the pawn structure strong. He might play d4 at some point in order to try and dislodge my knight, but I'm not overly worried about that because I think I can play knight c4 and then play d5. So something like d4, knight c4, he saves the bishop, and then I play d5, blocking in both his bishops and rerouting my knight through the d6 square. So that would probably be pretty strong for black. He does have the bishop pair, but we have no obvious weaknesses. With the move c6, we've also opened up ideas of my bishop coming back at some point, or even my queen becoming developed and active on the queen side. So a a very flexible position for black here. And he's gone into his first real think. Okay, so he just takes. That's a little bit surprising. Alright, so do we back up to A5 and come back this way, or do we just come back to D6 right away? I'm going to come back to D6 right away. I'm expecting a move like D4, in which case I don't think I'm going to take. Okay, so if I capture, he's going to recapture with the C pawn most likely and have a really strong center. I can leave the tension. It's guarded by my bishop, so no big deal there. I could leave it with queen C7 perhaps. Then the question is whether he would push himself. I can also play E4 myself, which is interesting. E4 pushes bishop back. And then the question is, does my E4 pawn become a weakness? Okay, if I leave the tension and he pushes D5, I can just capture. Because here, capture, bishop captures, knight captures. Oh, I can't. Because my pawn's still in the way. So he could threaten D5. But even then, he's going to have the weak C pawn. So leaving the tension seems pretty strong. So where do I want my other pieces? My queen on C7 perhaps. Then I've got some threats along the diagonal. One of my rooks is definitely going to end up on the C file. The other rook on probably D8 would be ideal. That way it's lined up with his queen. This rook to line up with the weak C pawn. This rook to end up lined up with the queen, which means my queen needs to move, which is making me really think that queen C7 is the way to go. Down under 5 minutes, so at some point I'll have to do more moving than talking, but not yet. Alright, let's put one rook on the D file. And then I can even think about playing C5 myself at some point here, which is an interesting idea. Just trying to force him to have a weakness in the center. Should I play my rook to C8 first to get it off the diagonal? Where's his knight going? Yeah, let's bring this rook in. If knight c4, I think I'll push e4. And if he exchanges, I think my knight should be strong in that endgame. Queen b3, okay. Not as expecting of that move. This is preventing my c5 idea. So do I play b6 to prepare c5? c6 shouldn't be too weak. So b6, he does something, I play c5, he pushes past. Shouldn't be able to push past. I think his pawn will become a weakness then. Alright? Still a lot of game left, so I gotta be careful about running too low on time. But I'm pretty happy with this position. Alright, let's play c5. Even ideas of just pushing c4 now. Maybe my queen goes over to e7. Okay, we could play c4 right now. I could also capture once and then play my queen over to e7. That looks good also. Kind of thinking that playing f5 at some point would be nice. All right, let's capture once. Opposite colored bishops, which means the person attacking in the middle game should have the advantage. And I'm looking for something like e takes d4 on his bishop, set up some threats along the diagonal again. He might play queen c2 here to hit my h-pawn. How are we going to respond to that? I think I will respond with g6, actually, with the idea of playing f5 later. Wow, okay. So I can lift the rook. I could also just sacrifice the exchange. Probably no reason to do that, since I'm happy with my position already. Put it on a dark square. Give his bishop one less target. Okay, now I can capture. And when I capture a second time, there's actually a pin down the c file now that he played queen c2. So no reason to play f5 right now, because we've got other tactics. Threats of rook takes c3. Yeah, this is not an easy position for him. And he's going to run into problems along this diagonal also. Whoops, that was a bad arrow. Along this diagonal also. So the position's turning around in our favor. He pushes c4. Interesting. So one idea is queen e5, going after the king. Another idea is to play our bishop to e5 so we can try to push the pawn. That doesn't seem as forcing. All right. Opposite colored bishops, middle game. Let's try and get the attack pressure going. Maybe I should have played d3 immediately. Didn't consider that. Might have been a strong move. What if I play d3 now? Gotta watch out because this rook is loose. Bishop c5 might just be strong. Let's play there, line up with this king, look for d3 pushes later. If he attacks my queen, I'll go back to f6 with the idea of pushing and attacking the f2 pawn at some point. Alright, trading off rooks I think will help me. Because we're only fighting for one file. And I'm currently up a pawn. A passed pawn at that. While the pawn's protected, not really a protected passed pawn, since it's only guarded by a piece rather than another pawn. Down to a minute 40. Gotta remember there's no increment in this tournament. And with my pawns on light squares around my king, it's really limiting what his bishop can do. Alright, let's double up. Capture. Capture. And then d3 is my idea. Okay, he stops that for the moment. Let's put my king on a dark square. This should be really tough for him. He doesn't have much play in this position. Wow, that seems very risky. Looking for ideas of coming in here. Also hitting that h3 pawn. A little bit sneaky. Throwing a check. Go over to the queen side. Just throwing a check here. I want to try and get behind him. Like this. Now, if he guards this pawn, I might be able to push, have ideas of getting f2 a different way. My king's still feeling okay. I have to be careful. Anytime I push the d pawn that I'm exposing that diagonal towards my king. Time's getting a little more even. Okay, he's just giving it to me with check. So I'm thankful for that. And with the second passed pawn, I think this is a winning opposite colored bishop endgame. If I can get that pawn up to a3 maybe. This pawn's weak, so my king should be able to get it at some point. Okay, and now his king is stuck. Because if his king ever leaves, I can play d3. The bishop captures. Okay, so just like this. If the bishop captures, then he can't stop a2, a1. So his bishop is already overworked. Okay, just back up. No threats. 40 seconds left, plenty of time. Didn't leave myself a lot of time, but enough. All right, let's just go queen. Has to play bishop c2, and then I play a2. Okay, get ourselves a queen. Stepping up here with the idea of checkmating him on the next move. Okay, doesn't want to be checkmated. And we'll get ourselves a second queen here, make things easy. And mate coming on the next move. All right. Good game to them. And on to the next one. The first place person berserking? No, they're just 4 out of 4 so far. We're not berserking today, focusing on quality over quantity. Some days it's quantity over quality, not today. And here we go. Against a high-rated opponent. We'll still play a gambit, even though it's a rapid game. Okay, they decline it. White just has a good edge in this position. E5 right away. Let's castle first. Just castle, keep it simple. Just develop normally. We haven't sacrificed anything. Alright, and in these positions, the knight goes to c4 usually. So that's where we're going. And that can help us push through the e5 pawn push at some point. b5 should just create some weaknesses for him. I can always drop back to the e3 square. Okay, e5, pawn takes, knight takes. Yeah, that seems good. That looks like a good moment to play e5. Let's take with the knight. And then the knight. Then where do we want to develop this queen? To f3, hitting the b pawn. That seems strong. That knight on e5 is very nice. Not only as attacker, it's also holding that bishop so that my queen's free to do more. Okay, now can we wander over to the king side and do much? Just looking for a chance to poke and prod a little bit. There might not be much here, but at least make him think about it. Let's bring that second rook over. Now we've got threats of playing c4 and bishop h7, trying to win his queen. He still hasn't managed to deal with this knight on e5. Long-term pressure on the e file, on the f7 pawn. Nothing concrete yet. And I do want to be careful about getting my queen trapped. A move like queen f4 could get it trapped. Okay, so now he's trying to deal with that. Alright, let's force that bishop to move. Queen g3, knight h5 could be an issue. Queen h4. Don't love that. Maybe we just come all the way back to e3. What's nice is that since they didn't accept the gambit, if all the pieces trade during this attack and their king ends up safe, we aren't down any material. Knight captures. Okay, let's try this. Bishop can capture. And here I get a better endgame if I take his rook. Queen takes, rook takes check, rook takes, and I take his bishop. My rook's hanging at the end of that, so I gotta be a little careful. I think we've got to do that at least. And then if I take his bishop, he's going to take my rook. Did we miscalculate here? Don't have any back rank issues. Okay, let's take here. I'm going to get at least a bishop and a pawn for it. Oh. Or am I not? Wait, let's see. I take, check, go there. Ah, we may be incorrect. I thought that I would be able to play my bishop back to b4. Well, I guess I can play it now. I just don't get the pawn. This guards the threats on e1. But now I'm just down the exchange. So not ideal. Let's guard the pawn and walk my king over, but this is going to be tough to hold. Although if everything ends up on one side of the board, that'll help. So here, he takes, I take. Okay, I think you might have had an opportunity there. All right. Surviving. So in these positions, I go here, takes, takes, takes. The trick for the rook is to trade off whenever it's a winning king pawn endgame, which looks like right now he can do that. If he just takes the pawn, yeah. Well played by him. Alright, there's our first loss. Go back to the tournament for game 3. Yeah, so in that game, our back rank was a little bit of an issue. Our queen kind of got wayward on the king side. And then I felt like I put up good resistance. Maybe there was a better way for me to fight with the pawns on the king side in that endgame. His king got pretty active. I sat in that pin for a while. I was worried about getting out of the pin and my king being cut off. I thought if I was in the pin, it meant his rook wasn't active. But he got to control the pawn play. Alright, there we go. Does not appear my opponent is in any hurry here. Okay, so I don't think I want to take the pawn on e4 because that moves his bishop to e4, which is a better square. I get to hit it again with the knight. But right now the bishop on d3 is a really awkward spot, so I'm thinking I just play c5. c5, think about c4 even. Can play knight f6. Try and make this a little bit normal, except he hasn't been able to play d4, which is a move that white wants to play against most French lines. Maybe c4. If I play c4, I'm chasing his bishop to a better square again. Okay, so he exchanges. And I'm pretty happy with this. Everyone's fianchettoing on the queen side today. I've got real nice central control. Castle, put a rook on e8. Both my bishops can get out. Do I care if he plays knight b5? I don't think so. If he wanted to go to c3, he already could. So he's not gaining any squares by going to b5. I can kick him then if I want to. Now, if he plays bishop e5 here, trying to team up on the c7 square, then maybe I need to play a6. Oh, okay. Interesting. He's not worried about his rook. He's going for checkmate. Let's just block that down. So now we're on the queen and the rook. Alright, we will take that free rook. Doesn't have enough pieces to checkmate me. I'm going to check here. And my idea is to play the move c4, attacking the bishop and the knight. So now the knight's under attack and the bishop's under attack. I might not be able to get my bishop out, but that's okay. Alright, go after this knight. My queen gets over there. He might not be able to get my bishop. Just so he doesn't have a passed d-pawn coming down the board. And I'm not even sure I want to save that bishop. All right, let's bring the queen back and hit his bishop again. Trying to make it so he doesn't have time to take my bishop. Alright, take that. We're on the knight. Does it really do anything to go deeper into his position? Don't think so. Let's go to the centralizing d5 square. Just keep an eye on this f5 square. Okay. For that exact reason. Does that concern us? So if I go check, I'm guarding the rook. That seems good. Need to deal with the f6 square a little bit, though. Thought I had better control over the f5 square. So bishop takes, knight takes, pawn takes. I guess I might just have to ruin my king side. Bishop takes, knight takes, pawn takes. Queen check, king over, queen check. King over, that looks like you might have a draw. I can play bishop takes c3. Gotta worry about him just pushing f6. Maybe I just play knight d7 and just take on f6. That looks to be the safest way. But he whipped up a little bit of counterplay. I'm going to throw in a check first, I think. Yeah, let's throw in a check. Just want to see if he'll block with his rook. And if he moves the king, then maybe there's some back rank issues later. Okay, now we'll take. Bishop to f5, knight takes, pawn takes. Queen g5 is always an issue. I also have queen e5, just threatening the back rank and threatening the rook. Let's do that. Just see how he's going to deal with that rook. Because we're still up a ton of material, so he can't trade queens. Next, I got to figure out what to do with this bishop. Maybe just bishop d7 and bring the other rook in. This bishop has not had a good square to go to for most of the game. I don't really want to play queen e8 myself, because he'll just block with the rook. I also don't want to take on c3 yet. Maybe I should move the f rook and something like rook f8 and then get my bishop out like this. But it goes back to what I mentioned earlier. The queen on h6 isn't doing anything if I can stop checkmate. So if I just leave that queen there, maybe I don't want to chase him away. Although in this exact position, if I chase the queen away, okay, the queen goes away itself. All right. Definitely not worried about the c-pawn. Maybe the bishop to c6 even. If my bishop is still on a1 instead of a3, then I probably want to leave the rook on f8. That way it's guarding this pawn. Okay. So can we trap him in here? Bishop f5 attacking the knight and the rook is still under attack. If he plays rook takes f5, I can take with the queen. He goes knight check. I step up, and then when he plays queen takes h7, I can take the knight, and I'm safe. So here, knight check up, queen takes h7, king takes f6, and I'm safe. Without a rook on that file, the knight f6 ideas are not as strong. All right, here I should just be able to play h5. Can't go back rank mate because his queen is covering there. He's putting up good resistance. His rook's under attack. And I can safely take it because the knight doesn't have any discovered checks. So my queen on f6 should be safe. Yep, so he goes back like that. And in this position, we can offer the queen trade. I think we're going to do so, with the idea that if he doesn't trade queens, we can work our way into here. His back rank is still an issue. Because one idea he might be considering is trying to go queen g5, queen h6, and then knight g5. But as soon as his queen leaves defense of that e8 square, e1 square, I can go queen to b1. And he has back rank issues. And if his queen... Okay, so that's exactly what happens. He's looking for one last checkmate. And if the knight goes back to g1, then he doesn't have any mate threats himself because his knight can't do anything new. All right, so we bring in the second rook then. Yeah, might even just play the rook here, force the rooks off the board. If he doesn't have a rook and a knight, he's not going to be checkmating me. And if the rook takes the bishop, he runs into the rook down to e1, losing his own knight. So that's why we're not worried about that. Oh, I guess I'm also guarding the bishop, so I can just take the rook. Even better. Not even a trade. Don't even have to make things complicated with rook e1. Trying to come up with if there are any last tricks in the position. But it doesn't appear so. offer another queen trade. And maybe it's time to extract that bishop. Still wants to avoid it naturally. The knight can't go anywhere, so let's bring this bishop around. I'm sure there's a faster way to win, but this keeps things simple. Okay, this forces the queens off the board. And then we have 2 extra rooks. Okay, guess we'll take that pawn. Okay, and he's out of time. On to the next game. So we've had 3 games so far. 2 wins, 1 loss. I feel like I played relatively well all 3 games. See who we get paired against in this game. Right. Pretty equal opponent, getting a Sicilian. Let's see what they choose to play. Early E5. Let's go back to F3. Need to guard that e-pawn if I'm going to throw in knight d5. Like this. Okay, now let's jump that knight in. That backwards d-pawn is what we're aiming for. So let's see what we can do about it. Play c3 some point soon. Develop my bishop. Bring a rook to the d file. I think we just go back to b3. Hit the knight with the idea of playing c3 next. Not worried about the knight coming to d3. Play rook d1. He takes my bishop. Both rooks into the game. And we're just going to look to pile up down the d file. Once we get a rook there, we'll have threats of knight takes e5. If I can double rooks, we can eventually just try and win it outright. Okay, this should lose a piece. Because now the knight's pinned to the queen. If the knight moves to d5, we can take it with the pawn. Our queen's guarded. I guess I should have given a little more thought to which pawn to push. I was just thinking about e5. But this does allow him to play knight to d3. But we still get a queen for a rook. So either way, the position should be winning for us. If you haven't tried these knight retreats to f3 in the Sicilian, I recommend them. They change the feel of the game a little bit. Alright, we're up a piece, so we are happy to trade. And if I just play bishop d2, how's he even saving that pawn? Now this is the moment in the game where I should probably slow down a bit, because we're up material, but we want to get more consistent at converting these positions. Okay, and he just resigned, so we'll move on. We now have some fire, 3 out of 4, 118th place. There's 90 minutes left. Wasn't planning on playing that long, but if we keep winning, then we'll continue playing. Oh, next game's about to start. Here we go. Alright, I said no berserks, but we're doing well, so the tournament standings may end up mattering. So I'm going to berserk it. I'm going to risk it. Risk it for the biscuit. Alright, let's hit that queen with an extra tempo with knight f6. And let's just develop the bishop to d6. Not try and do anything too fancy here. Play calm, developing moves, and let him make the mistake. I would not be surprised at all to see queen b5 in this position from him, at which point I'll play the move c6 to block the check. c6 is a move I might want to play anyway to let my queen out. Not sure yet. Might also want to play c5. Definitely want a kingside castle. And it appears my opponent is going to take their time here. Which is interesting because they played the first few moves so fast, and queen d3 was a very strange move. Maybe a mouse slip? Maybe they meant bishop d3, which is definitely a playable move. Looks like they are having a reasonable tournament, though. Let's see, I have 3 wins, right? So I have 3 wins, which is 6 points, so they probably have 3 wins also. Assuming they also, yeah, they're right by us score-wise. Actually, a few spots ahead of us, so they could even have more than that. They have at least 6 points. Yeah, weird time to take a pause, though. Must be deciding how to set up his pieces, where to develop them, but that should probably be done earlier. Okay. Let's just get castled. And do I want a fianchetto also? I'm thinking about opening the E file. Want my queen to be guarded so I don't run into any back rank issues. Okay, so E5, pawn takes, bishop takes, knight takes, bishop takes. So pawn, Yeah, he's opening the E file by taking first, so that makes it a little bit more complicated. Maybe I just attack his queen instead. Let's see if we can get that queen onto a worse square before I try opening up the board. Maybe my knight even wants to be on D5. The queen's got to be careful, though. How does the queen guard C2? Going backwards, perhaps. Goes here. I can even bring the second knight up. Not sure if bringing the second knight up is correct or not. But his queen might get chased a bit here. He has plenty of time to figure it out, though. I do have to decide how we're going to get this bishop out. if I don't play e5, but I think if I can chase his queen around a little bit, e5 will make more sense. If not e5, then maybe bishop to d7 and bishop to c6. Okay, so that just wins the queen. The c2 is unguarded. And we'll take there. And now we'll open up the position. And how do we find the checkmate here? Feels like there should be one. Not worried about the material I just gave up to open the file, because I should be able to get it back whenever I want. And his king's on the run. If he stays on the file, f6 will win the material. If he doesn't stay on the file, I should be able to continue to go after him. Okay. Which check, and does it matter? We'll go with this check. See where he goes. And this check. Check. And check. And he resigned. Okay. Chasing his king around, getting our material back, jumping back in there. Moves us up to 53rd place, actually. Maybe we'll just berserk against people under 1,500, under 1,200. Definitely don't want to be doing much berserking. I'd like to get in at least one more game against a higher rated opponent, hoping that my second loss is not an upset. Try and redeem myself against someone over 2,000. These people at the top of the standings are all berserking, it looks like. Okay. And he resigned. So I guess we'll take that. Now we're up to 31st. 1,700's a dangerous rating. Definitely possible to upset us, so don't mind skipping that game, especially if I'm getting points and rating points for it. I would like to jump into a game here. There's got to be someone else waiting. Yeah, performance rating, nothing amazing so far. Are we going to berserk against the 1,600? Well, let's live large. I know we said we weren't going to, but now we're on a bit of a streak. Alright, we're going to develop normally. We're looking for a kingside attack. Going to look to trade dark square bishops. H3 is a useful move in these structures. Keeps the knight and the bishop off at g4. Let's keep it a little bit closed. He says no, he doesn't want to keep it closed. This pawn might become weak, but I'm going to look for a kingside attack. castle. He's going right after the pawn. Don't blame him. I'm going to go right after the king. I'll make a trade. I'll give you this pawn if you give me your king. Okay, now I can get the pawn back simply by taking here, which looks pretty strong. Because his knight doesn't have a good move here. And this will keep his king nice and exposed. I'm actually on his other rook right now. So he doesn't have time to take on f2. And I'm going to develop my knight. I know I can take on d6, but I want to prioritize the attack here. I cannot take on e5 next. Should definitely mention that. Okay, so I can take on d6. Do I want to? I can back the queen up. That looks pretty strong. Now I am threatening to take on e5, threatening the knight. Because now my rook is the one pinning the pawn rather than my queen. Knight g5 is also an idea. Now let's take on e5 with the idea of swinging this knight back to g4, working on that dark square diagonal perhaps. Or we could go back to f3 and then up to g5. Wow, okay, there's not a check. Whew. Almost lost it. All right, what if we just look to trade rooks? If I look to trade rooks, he can take on c2. I move my king. And yeah, I think I should be safe. I'm not worried about these pawns. Maybe I should be. And my thought is here that if he plays queen g5 and I move over, he can't really capture my knight because he should run into problems on f7. Again, not calculated as fully as I should have due to the time situation. Well, let's see. See if he plays. Okay, so he just takes the knight now. Okay, let's play this check. What? There's no way this can work. I say that, but of course, it is perfectly plausible that it could work. So, queen to g3 is not threatening anything. Queen g3, I'm not threatening to go to h4, which is the big issue, I guess. Check here. Do I just play king b1? That mates myself, so let's say no. Oh, we may have gotten ourselves into some trouble here. Alright, I could take on h7. The king takes. I go check. The king steps back to h6. That's not ideal either. Do I play h4 and look for that? Could also play h4. g4, g5, h4. Running out of time too. Don't know what to do. Play c3. Now I'm the one worried about getting checkmated. This prevents my queen from going over to the king side, but it might just be necessary to survive. And as long as my rook's cutting his king off, I've got chances. I'd like to get my king onto a light square. Okay, let's step over here. I'm guarding the d1 square, thankfully, so I am threatening to take the knight. Might have to play a3 too. If I take the knight, I'm reopening ideas of moving my queen. But then I've got to watch out for the c1 square. 42 seconds left. Berserking may have done us in. Okay. Let's go here. Need to find a way to get at his king. Maybe queen c2 next. He's not in time trouble, and that might be the biggest problem. Now I've got ideas of queen c2 and queen c1, which would lead the mate. Would it? Well, it would win the queen. Okay. Alright, there's still some tactics here. I gotta be careful about where I move my queen, because I do have to hang on covering this d1 square. Alright, let's go here. Now I'm thinking about playing h4, queen takes, and then playing a check. He pushes the pawn. Not simple. Not simple at all. And I'm the one low on time. Alright, that was a nice move by him, using that pin. Now I am threatening the knight again. No, I'm not, because of the c1 square. But I am threatening to push h4. Ooh, h4 looks pretty good. h4, queen takes, then I play a check. And whenever he blocks, maybe it's still not clear. I was hoping I'd have to block with the queen. Check. How do I get to the H file? So h4, queen takes, check, queen blocks, check this way. Okay, h4 should do it. I think I calculated it out. Yes, because I'm guarding the g5 square. 20 seconds, so you could just give up material also. But if I can grab that knight in addition to his queen, that would be ideal. 20 seconds to try and convert this. So if he takes g4, we play queen to e3 check. He can block with the queen. We take it. We take check. We pick up the knight. So we get the queen and the knight for the rook. That should be winning. Although, still some work to do. Queen versus rook. Pawns on the board should help me. If he moves the queen, then we play g5 check. And if the king moves up, then rook takes h7 as mate. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for. Because then I get the queen and the knight for free, and I still have my rook, so I should be able to mate, rather than playing the endgame. It's always tense, though, in these positions. Your opponent has lots of time. They're thinking. You've got to be on edge, ready to move. I don't think it makes a difference what square I check on. Because I could also check on d2 if he takes the pawn. Does that make a difference? He takes check. Maybe this is actually getting more complicated. So he takes the pawn. Okay, I have to check. No time to think about it. Okay, check. And check. This was the idea. Winning the queen. Should be able to pre-move that. But now he's keeping the knight also. I should be able to win one of them. Oh, that move I did not expect. I don't know why I didn't expect that move. Not smart, Michael. Chases rook away. Pre-moved one time. Got myself into trouble. Although this might end up being a good endgame here. Keep his king blocked off. Four seconds left. Gotta hover. Gotta use the hover strategy. We might just get flagged. Maybe we'll flag him. He's taking a while. I want to hover just in case he plays rook a8 here. This endgame might even be winning, since I think we're just going to be winning the b-pawn. Oh, and I won on time with half a second. Although this position is winning as I am queening, as long as I pre-move in time. That was a close call. Okay, that moves us up to 18th place. With 20 points now. 6 wins and 1 loss. Just over an hour left. Get some water. And Let's get another game going here. Yeah, don't really know what happened in that last game. Probably just need to not sacrifice the knight. And then after that, it looked like we got enough for it. But he probably could have defended a little bit better. And then he tricked us a little whenever we thought we were winning the queen. Then we were in a rook endgame. Crazy back and forth. Alright, slow it down a little bit. Here we are against a higher rated opponent. A d4 game. Alright, let's keep things simple. Play c5, playing against a London type system here. And let's play queen b6. These positions are a lot of fun. This is just mainline stuff, so I'm a little surprised he's pausing here. Might bode well for us. Okay, he does play a reasonable move. And now, in an earlier game, I played bishop f5, and they took on c5. So do I want to move the bishop or not? Bishop f5, e6. Worry about getting my bishop stuck. Let's just go ahead and develop the bishop. Weird place for me to pause, because, as I just said, main line. But usually people don't play queen c8, and it's been a while since I looked at my notes on it. Lots of people are playing queen b3 in recent months against me. So I want to play e6, open up my bishop to guard the c-pawn, support d5, want to castle kingside, bring my rooks to the center, probably put a rook on the c-file since his queen's there. We'll pre-move this. This is a safer pre-move than last time. We on this list? We are. Made it all the way up to 18th place there. We're on fire. Okay, play e6, guard the c5 pawn. Not sure where this knight's going. Apparently he's going to c5. Or attacking that square at least. Okay, do I play c4 here? I play c4, he jumps in, I win a pawn. He jumps back. I feel like I lose a lot of my play. Right, like c4 and the knight goes right back to d2. What did I accomplish? If I take once, use the c-file. Alright, let's think about it a little deeper. c4, knight b to d2. Yeah, and I just lose a lot of play. I don't like that. Let's capture. He might actually take with the e-pawn. Taking with the c-pawn, symmetrical. I think I'm the one with threats down the c-file. If he takes with the e-pawn, I probably play bishop e7, castle kingside. That's my plan. The other reason I don't really like having a pawn on c4, unless I can push the b pawn easily, is because I want to use that c4 square for my knight. And so occupying it with a pawn when I can't get in another pawn break can really stifle black's activity. And even though this position is completely fine for black, it can be a little bit harder to play. That's part of the reason people like the London system. Is it's a system where white gets a very playable position with very little risk, and so we want to be careful about giving away any of that play that we do have. Alright, I'm going to take. And if he takes with the knight, oh, he took with the pawn. I was going to say, if he takes with the knight, I'm backing my bishop up. Here, I actually want to trade dark square bishops because I very likely want to have a rook on b8 in these positions, and maybe I can launch the minority attack. It almost feels as if I'm playing the white side of some kind of Queen's Gambit declined, or a Queen's Gambit declined exchange, something like that. Queen's Gambit exchange declined, I don't know. But yeah, that type of pawn structure where I'll be going for the minority attack. Because on the black side of those structures, you're usually the one with the open e-file. The bishops are a little bit unusual, but this should be good. So I'm going to look at the castle, and then maybe a change of plans. Maybe my rooks belong on the c-file and the b-file now. I don't play those positions as white, and so I can't say I have a ton of experience from the white side playing with the minority attack. I play against it quite a bit from the black side with mixed results. Alright, so he's just going to check me. Where's my king want to go? Probably just step up. Let's keep that king in the center. Bring my second rook in. And this is kind of nice because I can accelerate my queen side play with a6 and b5. And since I'm doing that with tempo, it's pretty hard for him to stop the minority attack then. Okay, let's hit it again. Do we take that? Do we back up? If my plan is to play b4, do I really want an open h-file? I kind of like his queen on c1 though, because it's going to have to move again to get those rooks anywhere. And maybe this causes problems for him. He has to at least think about h2 now. Attack the knight, with the idea being that if he takes my knight, he gets mated. I don't really want to open the file now. Yeah, so now I've got the choice of what side of the board I want to attack on. I almost want to keep my knight now because I could use that e4 square. I could also double on the h-file. Yeah, let's just bring my knight right back because now I've got an outpost. f6 was never a strong idea because of the forks. Okay, so he's trying to stop the minority attack, but I might just shift gears. Go for some kingside play. I can also play the minority attack whenever I want. This knight going to e4 has to be a strong move though. So let's start with that. It also protects c5 if he ever tries to reroute his knight over there. And he can't dislodge my knight. Now I do want to move my king or my rook so I can play f6 at an opportune moment. And it looks like the rook is going to be the way to go. This also protects the c6 square, frees up my queen a little bit. Not really sure where he's going with that. Let's start pushing these pawns, create some weaknesses. Okay, he's backing up. this rook on the b file. Again, if he goes to c5, we can simply take him. He has to be careful where the queen steps. My queen might want to find a different square, though, so my knight can reroute to c4. But that might only be true if the queens end up trading. And of course, if I ever route to c4, then he gets the c5 square, so this is probably better for the moment. f5 is also dangerous for him. If he's trying to open the e file, it's double-edged because of the h2 pawn. Whoa. That's a move I didn't expect. That looks to me like he's trying to push through the f5 move. Okay. So, do we just go back to the h file? Then he can't play f5 and I can look to double? Seems pretty strong. Alright. Let's go back. Alright, hit this pawn with tempo and bring the other rook over. I'm not overly worried about him playing knight c5. I can take it and just leave that passed pawn. Or I can not take it, because the knight's not going anywhere else, if my knight can find something better to do. Maybe I even try and play f5 myself at some point. Tricky position. We do have a little bit of a time edge. I haven't been paying any attention to the clocks. Okay, let's come over this way. How do I get my queen involved? g5, he pushes f5. If I push f5 myself, seems dangerous. I could bring my knight back, though, and just try and take on g4. That could be strong. Okay, let's do this once, see what he does. Make him think for a moment. If he just plays his rook over, I might have to go back to e4. But my position should still be good there. If this whole attack doesn't work, though, it'll show that I should have gone forward with that minority attack. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a strong move. Is it? Wait, I can take the pawn. And if the knight takes, I can take. No, I can't. Okay. Now do I push through b4? Is this the time for the minority attack? It might be, actually. Let's try and open up some more lines. Note that after taking twice, my queen can't take because there's a fork on this square. But I'm really trying to look at a way to get to his back rank. Something like queen over to a6 is my idea. And that's where I want to go. Okay, so knight captures on g4. Knight captures. Okay, so let's bring this queen down. I'm thinking knight captures, rook check. And if pawn takes, then I've got queen over, which will lead to mate. Or it should be close. So knight captures g4, knight captures g4, rook takes check, pawn takes, and then queen check, king up, rook check, king back. I'm not sure where the mate is. Okay, he's looking for a check. I think we got to go for this, though. I think we got to go for this. Now, the question is, when the knight takes, will he just block instead when my rook is checking him? He might. But that should be fine for me also. Yeah, he does. Do I go check? Let's go back. He has 1 minute left. He can actually take here, strangely enough. And then I have to be the one to make sure I don't get checkmated. Alright, so how is he going to guard this pawn? So if I just come over here and attack it, is he going to guard with the queen? Oh, he's just going to give up that pawn and say I've got 2 pawns. Alright, I hear you. Let me grab one of these pawns in the moment and then walk my king over. Okay, that feels like a mistake because now one of his rooks has to defend. And I think he's just going to get flagged here. I'm not sure how he should go about playing this. Feels like the activity of my rook, that things are not going to be easy for him. And this should be a pretty safe position. Okay, he timed out. Maybe it's not. Oh yeah, if his rook moves. Yeah, maybe I still had some work to do there to defend it, but that's another win. That moves us up to 12th place. So really going well here. That is 6 wins in a row for us. Almost on the front page now. And here's our next game against a very strong player. So remember, if we do lose this game, that is the end of our tournament because we're only playing until 2 losses today. So going down some mainline stuff here. Let's hit that queen. See what kind of theory we can remember. Castle, castle. He's probably going to exchange. He goes back. Okay, this is supposed to be good for white. Is this where I play d5? Is this where I pin the knight? Probably pinning the knight makes sense. He hasn't developed this bishop, which is pretty unusual. Unusual. We've got an isolated pawn, so I want to be careful about trading minor pieces. So how do we keep this activity up? If I push d5, he can play knight captures. can he? He might lose the c7 pawn, but that position seems fine for him. Okay. I need to develop my queen so one of my rooks can come to the center. There's also the possibility that I just take on f6. And then bring my knight to e4. So d5, knight captures, bishop captures, g5. Knight takes g5, queen takes g5, knight takes c7. I don't love that the queens are still on the board there, because his queen feels better than mine. He's going to get some kind of tempo with rook d8. So d5, knight captures, bishop captures, knight takes c7. And do it like that and keep more pieces on the board. We can play bishop takes f6, bishop takes f6, knight to e4. He can then take on d4, it looks like. Have to take with the bishop, though. Bishop captures f6, bishop captures f6. Knight to e4. And if he takes on d4 with the knight, I have knight captures check. And if he takes with the bishop, then what? Takes with the bishop, then my knight on e4, not looking great. Maybe my bishop was supposed to be on f4 and not g5. So I had ideas of moving my knight. It's looking to be the case a little bit. Alright, let's move rook e1. Just used up half my time there. Saying, I don't remember if these pieces are in the right place. My queen definitely feels weird sitting on d1. Normally it would be on b3 or on c2. Oh, okay, so he goes the right away. I'm going to kick it. He's going to go back to d5. But my thought is now my queen gets to come to the next b3 square. Exchange on c3 should be fine for me. Alright, which way do I move this bishop? Go to c4. Could go to d3. Could also just go back to f1. I think I like the d3 square. Just in case there are tactics down the d file at some point. Bishop can always go to f1 later. But on d3, it might lull him into that false sense of security with extra things on the file. I also have ideas of just taking on d4 now. Capture on d4, knight takes. Guess I don't really have that threat yet. Maybe someday. Knight captures. Knight captures. Keep the bishop. Back the bishop up. Let's back the bishop up. Need to get this rook involved also. I'm not sure if the D file or the C file is the right place to do it. I don't think I'm going to get any play down the C file unless he also gets an isolated D pawn. So my rook probably belongs on D1. Trying to play slightly faster now since I'm under 5 minutes. My opponent still has almost 8 minutes. Yeah, right now I just have the isolated pawn, but all the minor pieces are on the board, so that's good. Maybe I've got to be concerned about bishop g4 here. He's giving up the b pawn, but maybe I've got to play like knight takes knight there, just so I've got tactics along this third rank. If I could reduce this to something where he also has an isolated d pawn. Knight takes, bishop takes, knight takes. Guess that's the issue. Oh, okay. He's looking for the queen trade. But what now? Now this knight is actually a bit pinned up. So if I take the queen, he recaptures and I play knight e4. Nah, might not be anything there. Recaptures, I push the pawn. Queen captures, knight captures. I push the pawn. Knight captures, pawn captures. I attack his rook. Yeah, that could be good. Queen captures, pawn captures. Knight captures, knight captures. Yeah, there's a lot of play there. I think this queen exchange still leaves me with some possibilities. So do I take that bishop? I think yes. I've got a better bishop in this endgame. And now just attack the knight. I'm going to have the open file. My knight's going to go into e5. I take the knight, the bishop takes, I move my rook in. Yeah, that seems like it has potential also. Alright, let's do that. He can give me doubled f pawns, but I've got the active rook, and that makes a big difference in these positions. My knight can still go into e5 next if he doesn't take it. Yeah, I'm getting a lot of play here. Ironically, the trade of queens really helped my minor pieces. I need to move my king. Otherwise, I've got back rank issues. I was thinking about knight e5, but then he attacks my rook. And when my rook moves, he has rook to e8. So that's what I was concerned about. See what we can do with this knight. Not sure we can do anything with it, but we'll give it a go. I guess we can try and trade here also, which is kind of awkward. Kind of weird. It might just be good. We've of course managed to get rid of our isolated pawn, and in theory, I have chances to create an outside passed pawn here at some point. I'm down to 2 minutes on the clock, so that's not ideal, but... And then if I go for this trade... Oh, this looks strong. Am I just going to be winning a pawn there? Okay, and if I move my king to the E file, he's going to pin me. If I move to G1, then he's going to pin. Take the bishop. What's going on here? Obviously, I don't want to give up the exchange, so I can go to G1. He pins. I can bring my knight back to F3 if I want, if I need to. Guess I could anyway. Okay, let's go back to G1. And then play F4 to stop any mates. I'm on the bishop right now. So also got to be careful of F7. My rook is very active. Yeah, he wants to stay there. That makes sense. Do I just bring my king up a little bit? Also attack this pawn. Gotta play faster. That's step one. Maybe I should have activated the king. If I take the B pawn, I've got to pass A pawn, so it's hard to say. I need more than a minute to figure it out, that's for sure. King F2 just to protect that E2 square is probably a useful move. He can play rook E6 here. Then he's got to worry about problems on F7, maybe. King F2. Obviously, we want to take the B6 pawn at some point. Okay, I guess we'll do this. Gives his king more room, which I guess is the idea. Right, let's bring this king up. Get this king a little more active. Try not to lose material here either. There's a lot going on. Maybe I should have come over one step further, actually. Not sure that means anything. There are going to be pawns falling everywhere. Might be able to walk my king up and do something. Don't walk there, though. Trying to get my king involved. My knight is not on a great square. So what can we do about that? Go here. Six seconds left. Just running into time problems. Out of time. That was a close one. That was a good game. Alright, that's going to end our tournament. Don't have time to play the full thing. So, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you next time.